how as a chef then do I reconcile all this and bring it together to develop menus that people are going to enjoy in general, but taking all these elements into consideration?
Well, I think that there's a terrible trap, and chefs have to avoid it. And that this is a trap which I think sophisticated artists have already avoided, and you are culinary artists, so it's up to you too. And that is the idea that everything should be delightful and everything should be pleasurable and everything should just be easy. It doesn't have to be. I really love Chef Andoni's menus and cooking at Mugaritz. And he says, he puts on a tasting menu and he says, remember, not every dish has to be pleasurable. He wants people to struggle. He wants people to have contrast. He wants them to know there are some things like eating a bit of uncooked fish throat, which is chewy, difficult, a little bit sort of, its texture is a little slimy. But he wants you to realize we have this whole range of experiences as we eat. And only by contrast and only by seeing a menu as in effect, a performance and a set of experiences for comparison and reflection will you get the most out of them. That makes it art. And I think, I think you've got that. I think one or two chefs have got that. So don't always aim for the crowd-pleasing dish.
Oh, I love that idea because so Andoni was actually quite, he was quite an inspiration for this particular idea that you're talking about now when it comes to my, let's say, willingness to go a little bit further with dining and see how far you can push certain limits. Now, he had said, I remember one quote of his is, he said, I went to culinary school and they taught me how to cook good food. Now I want to cook interesting food. And I thought that's a very telling kind of quote. And what it's done for us over time is I've found that we've become more and more interested in this whole idea of emotional engagement of our guests at the table and tapping into different emotions. And obviously you want fun and enjoyment and people laughter and nostalgia and these positive emotions. But it did also get us thinking about emotions like fear and disgust. Fear, there being lots of foods that we as humans have a fear of. And that can come from culture.
Insects?
Yeah. Insects, jellyfish, these are kind of foods that you'll find kind of in many parts of the world, people have an aversion to them. And looking at how you can make these states, let's call them, a part of a dining experience. You don't want to alienate people, but it is about challenging them in some way and getting them to think a little bit differently about food.
I think that's right. And I that's the thing. People who are interested in what they're eating will thank you for, because we want interesting experiences. We're very lucky. We have lived in a time where we can have huge number of ingredients. We have dishes from all over the world. We're very choosy eaters. We've got tremendous choice. But interest is one of those things that challenges us. Voltaire said, taste invites reflection. And I think that's right. You want to eat something and then think a little more about it. And so the more a chef can provoke you, invite that reflection, the more interesting the food is. And the Andoni's quote about moving from making good food to interesting food reminds me of a quote that Hugh Johnson, the wine critic, always says. He's not sure where he got it from, but it's such a beautiful quote, which is, I'd rather have a lesser wine if it had more to say. That's good. I mean, I think that's good, because nowadays you can have these beautiful wines. They're impeccable. They're very crafted. They're very polished. But in some sense, it's all too samey and easy. Whereas if you have something a little more angular, a little more challenging, the brain starts working. I think that's also why chefs know to add texture. Every chef says, I put this in for texture. And people say, what do you mean? Well, you say, well, it adds interest. If you've got a lot of soft foods and then you've got some crunch or bite, or you've got different textures there, the brain notices contrast. And if anything, our chemical senses are there to detect when things have changed. Your sense of smell is acutely targeted on, has something gone wrong? Is there a smell of smoke? Is there a predator? Is this food off? Is it okay? Is something being cooked and I want to go and find out? So our sense of smell is a sensor for something changing in the environment. And the more you can introduce these contrasts and changes into dishes, the more interested the brain is and the diner is.